get started momentarily. We are letting everybody join into the Zoom app, and then we will start. Thank you for joining the ACA Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for this Tuesday, February 2nd. We're excited to have everybody here. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services here at the Arizona Commerce Authority. I'd like to start by thanking all of our community partners. We could not do these sessions without their help and support and their expertise, their time and their effort. They are great partners of ours with the boot camps, and we are glad to work with them. The Small Business Bootcamp is designed to help small businesses work through the COVID crisis and return stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by our community partners, and it is a bootcamp and a resource collective. On our website for the Small Business Bootcamp, you can find many tools, including that resource collective. But one of the great tools that we have on there is all of our previous sessions are archived. We record them and make them available so you can go back and watch them for the first time, or rewatch them if you attended and want to review it again, along with the materials that partner provided to us for that session. You also will go to that website to register for upcoming sessions. And on that website, which is azcommerce.com/small business bootcamp, small-business-boot-camp, you can find our resource collective. And the resource collective are tools and resources and guides provided by our community partners to help support small businesses during this time. These are just some of the links, some of the resources and guides that you can find on the resource collective, things for cosmetologists and barbershops, restaurants, construction, manufacturing, safety, unemployment insurance, preparing for reentry amid COVID-19, different things like that to help work through the challenge that small businesses are facing right now and return stronger. So with that, I want to share a few quick updates. The SBA just posted some results thus far through January 31st for the PPP loan program. And Arizona has received over 10,000, we've processed 10,000 loans for Arizona small businesses and received over $873 million in those PPP loans just for 2021. So that's a great infusion of cash into the small business ecosystem here in Arizona, and we're excited to see those companies get those funds. Additionally, I've listed on here if you are still looking at a PPP loan, the Arizona lender list provided by the Arizona District Office for the SBA. They put this list together to help Arizona businesses identify the lenders that are participating in the PPP loan program. So that's a great tool. Additionally, I want to talk about the Emerge AZ Fast Grant. There's a link to it right here. It is for small businesses throughout the state that are in the tech or startup phases. Check it out. There is some funding there to help some of those small tech and startup businesses to get going. And then additionally, the City of Glendale and Prestamos have joined forces to help the City of Glendale small businesses with a pandemic response small business assistance program. We have the link there, and it is for businesses located within the City of Glendale. Additionally, for business resources during the COVID crisis, we have our Arizona business resource page for COVID-19. This page is updated with business guidance, financial guidance, and resources, and many other things. We constantly are updating it with new information as we receive it. That is definitely a go-to page for businesses in Arizona. Additionally, I want to share a few of our programs that we have to help all the small businesses throughout the state. Our small business services can help navigate with the SBA, the Small Business Development Centers who are with us today for today's presentation, local banking contacts, startup guidance, licensing guidance, etc. Our workforce can help with businesses that are looking to hire employees or upskill and train some of their employees. They have a number of different programs to help with that. And our Arizona Manufacturing Extension Partnership can work with small to medium-sized manufacturers that are looking to grow and expand their business or work through some challenges they may have, they can do A to Z in the manufacturing realm to help Arizona manufacturers. Additionally, that ties in with today, a lot of people are looking to start businesses or start a side gig, and we have our small business checklist, and this is an online interactive guide to help small businesses understand the licensing, registration, compliance needs at the local, state, and federal levels, along with a number of other great resources as part of the checklist. And finally, I want to talk about the state's COVID-19 information and resource page. Just a reminder that the state has us together for all things COVID-19. Is arizonatogether.org. So with this, we're going to look at this week's sessions. Today we have the 10 steps to starting a business in Arizona. And then on Thursday morning at 9 a.m., we have cash flow management, knowing your cash position during COVID-19. That's going to be, both these are brought to us by the Small Business Development Centers in Arizona. Today's session is from the Yavapai College Sbdc, and Thursday's session is by the Maricopa Community College's Sbdc. So with that, I want to introduce today's speakers. We have Marie Potowski-Beals and Jerry Dennison. And Jerry is the director of the Yavapai College Sbdc. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to her for their introductions and get them started. So Jerry, it is all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. I'll go ahead and share my screen, if I may, here. And yeah, I just wanted to say we really appreciate the opportunity to work with the Arizona Commerce Authority and present at workshops like this. I've been the director of the Small Business Development Center at Yavapai College since about June of 2017. And Marie Potowski-Beals joined us last year, I think, and has been a very quick, fast learner. She was thrown right into the throes of COVID and hired remotely. It was our first time hiring somebody remotely, not even, in fact, it wasn't until later in the year that we actually met in person. So I'm going to turn it over to Marie. She's going to go through the slides and then I will wrap it up. So Marie, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm Marie Potowski-Beals, and I'm a business analyst with the Sbdc in Yavapai County. Starting a business in Arizona is easy. Just follow these 10 steps. I'll walk you through these steps and explain them more in detail. I'll give you a chance to ask questions in the Q&A below after each step. The Arizona Commerce Authority's website is a great way to get your mind thinking about starting a small business and has instant access to the tools you need, like events, like this boot camp event, programs and incentives where you can help find tax credits or grants or startup competitions, mentorships, and additional resources. So check out their webpage at azcommerce.com/small-business/small-business-checklist. I know it's a mouthful, but it's worth going there. You'll get inspired and you'll want to start your business journey right away. So when you're ready for our no-cost consultations at the Sbdc, please register on your county's Sbdc website. I'll give you some of those web addresses later on, but you can do an internet search and find them pretty easily. So step one, make a plan for your business. What kind of business do you want to start? Before taking any big leaps or spending any money, you need to have a plan. Business planning isn't just smart, it's essential for determining the validity of your business idea. Here are a few things you'll outline in your plan, and this is just a rough draft, just on a notepad for now, and just so you can start gathering your thoughts. We'll get into writing a solid business plan with a free tool the Sbdc offers later in the slides. So your target market, who exactly are you selling to? Be specific. Think about age, gender, occupation, income level, physical location, or any other relevant details. Once you know who they are, figure out how the best way to communicate with them. Are they active on Facebook? A lot of our clients are on Facebook. So we do a weekly live coffee chat with the SBDC every Tuesday morning at 7:45 a.m. How about YouTube? My husband goes to YouTube before he buys anything to check reviews or to help figure out how to use something. Would making a YouTube video get you some exposure? What about LinkedIn? LinkedIn is a more professional place to reach your audience, but if you're a professional, videos and tips posted there, they'll get you traction and they'll get you noticed. What about Snapchat or TikTok or Reddit? That's where the younger audience is. If you're trying to reach the youth or Gen X or Gen Z or millennials, that's where to go because that's where they spend all their time. Do they not use social media at all? I mean, some people do not use it, believe it or not. So you might have to do print advertising or word of mouth through extensive networking. Would coupons work? The baby boomers love coupons. Think about incentives like a free dessert on your birthday or a punch card like buy 10 sessions, get one free, or a discount if you refer a friend, or a discount if they pay with cash. The market need. What problem does your product or service solve for your target market? We just talked about target market. Have you thought about it? Are they young? Are they tech savvy? Are they foodies? Do they like to camp? Do they have pets? Figure out your target market. Lots to consider, right? Next is how you'll solve the problem better than your competitors. What makes you better? Or better yet, way better. Do you use organic products? Are you eco-friendly? How about your milestones? What do you plan to achieve in the next 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? You may not reach all these exact increments when you originally planned, but setting major milestones is still an important practice for keeping you motivated and on track. Here at the SBDC, we have software we can loan to you that helps nudge you and keeps you motivated and on track. What about your marketing plan? What's your marketing budget? Do you even have one? It might be more important now, more than ever, to spend money on marketing, especially since people are not out and about like they used to be, at least for the time being. A lot of people are staying home. How are you going to reach them? Your strategy is bound to evolve over time, but you'll lay out some initial ideas in your rough business plan. The SBDC has people on our team that are marketing experts and can help you with this. Again, this is a super trimmed down introduction to writing a business plan. There's much more you'll need to include, especially if you're hoping to secure funding. Are there any questions about starting a rough draft of the plan for your business? If not, we'll go on to step 2. Pick a name for your business. This is the fun part. Google it to see if someone else is using it or anything similar. If others are using it, you could get into legal trouble, so you'd better consult an attorney or pick a different name. The last thing you need is to start a business with a name you love and then get a cease and desist letter from an attorney threatening to sue you. You should also check out the azcc.gov website to see if it's being used in Arizona. That's the Arizona Corporation Commission. If it's already in use, start thinking of other names. Step 3, purchase a domain name. If you're going to have a website, that is the same name as the entity name, you can purchase the domain name at this stage, or wait until after you've checked the name availability through the Arizona Corporation Commission. So the domain name means the name you'll use on your website. You could purchase domain names from various hosting companies like Hostway or GoDaddy or even from Google. Some cost very little. I've seen them for 99 cents, but some are super expensive, especially if you're buying from someone who owned the name previously. Also, the price will depend on how many email addresses you use. It's important to do a keyword search for SEO. That's search engine optimization. It's important to do this search so you can use certain words in your website design and narrative. It just makes it easier if someone is looking you up on, Google or some other internet search site. But just so you know, the Arizona Corporation Commission does not sell or register domain names. And owning a domain name does not give you any right to the name through the ACC or through the Arizona Secretary of State. Domain names are completely separate from the ACC and the Arizona Secretary of State. They're used for your website or for your business email, like joan@xyzllc.com. But for marketing purposes, it's wise to keep your branding the same as long as no one else is using that name. Do we have any questions about buying a domain name? If not, we will go to step 4. Check the entity name and register it. Check the trade name and register your name with the Arizona Corporation Commission. They'll hold your name for 120 days till you're ready to form your legal entity at azcc.gov. If you already bought your domain name, you can make a landing page with your domain name now. If you're ready to start your business, then you can proceed to the next step. That's step 5. Create your legal entity. Your next major task is going to be registering your business with the state of Arizona. You'll be doing that on the Arizona Corporation Commission's website, azcc.gov. To do it online costs $85, but before you can do that, you have to figure out what type of business structure you want to form. An LLC, a PLLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, sole proprietorship. Once again, the Sbdc business consultants cannot give you legal advice on which type of entity to form. They all have different tax consequences. So you may want to consult an accountant for their advice. But, let's take a quick look at each of these business structures. Sole proprietor. Sole proprietor is a type of enterprise that's owned and run by one person, and in which there is no legal distinction between the owner and the business entity. The main disadvantage to being a sole proprietorship is unlimited liability. You and your small business, in the form of a sole proprietorship, is personally liable for all debts and actions of the company. The owner receives all profits and has unlimited responsibility for all losses and debts. Every asset of the business is owned by the proprietor, and all debts of the business are the proprietors. Unlike a corporation or an LLC, your business doesn't exist as a separate legal entity. So it's the easiest to form, but it could put your other assets in jeopardy. The LLC. This is the most popular small business structure. It stands for Limited Liability Companies. It gives small business owners the flexibility to choose how they'd like to be treated come tax time, and can offer the same personal protection of a corporation. And the PLLC is just the professional version of this. So if you're a doctor or attorney or CPA or the like, this structure is beneficial for you. So basically for a licensed professional. But what it does do is it protects one of the members from any malpractice of the other member. And LLC owners are generally called members. Arizona, like most states, also allows single member LLCs. So you can reap the rewards of an LLC, even if you're the sole member of your company. The primary reason business owners opt to take the LLC route is to limit the principal's liability. With an LLC, the articles of organization must be documented and filed with the state. These articles establish the rights, powers, duties, liabilities, and any other obligations of each member of the LLC. Other information included on the document includes the name and addresses of the LLC members, the name of the LLC's registered agent or statutory agent, and the business's statement of purpose. We'll talk about an address later in the presentation. So you can have a business partnership in an LLC, but you'd better have a separate partnership agreement first. Again, to define the obligation and roles of each partner. An S Corp is a much more formal structure than an LLC, including a board of directors, corporate officers, and up to 100 shareholders. All the profit is claimed on the shareholders' personal tax returns. It's a bit more complicated to form legally. Again, consult your CPA or attorney to see if this is the right type of entity for you. A C Corp. There are no limit to the number of shareholders, but this is the only structure that faces double taxation, as the shareholders and the business itself are both responsible for paying taxes on the profits. Again, best to consult an accountant to help you determine which one works best for you. And this is an important tip. If you form a corporation, you are required by statute to file an annual report with the ACC once each year. They will send you a reminder email and you can submit it electronically, but put it in your calendar as a recurring event just in case you missed a reminder email. Because if you don't file, you'll get a penalty. After you formed your business entity, you will need to let the world know that you started a business with your company name. To do this, you'll need to call your local paper and ask for the classified department and tell them you need to publish your entity name. It has to be published 3 times. The only counties in Arizona that do not have this requirement are Maricopa and Pima. So if your place of business is within Maricopa or Pima counties, the commission has already posted notice to the approved document on its website, azcc.gov/public notice. This posting by the commission satisfies the statutory requirement, so you don't have to publish again unless you want to. So if the known place of business of the corporation is not in Maricopa or Pima, the document must be published. The publication must be completed within 60 days after the ACC approved the document for filing. So if you're in Yavapai or Cochise or Mojave or any other county, it's a requirement. Once the newspaper has published your entity name 3 times, they'll either mail you copies or email you copies for your records. You can file that with the ACC, but it's not mandatory. And this is a really great time to buy yourself a binder like this, to put in all your official paperwork, copies of the articles of organization or your annual report, confirmation and receipts from forming the business, proof of publishing, tax ID numbers, bank account information, copies of leases, and of course, all your corporate records. It's just good to have everything in one spot. Also, just as a tip, if you're going to be interacting with the public, it's best not to use your home address to register your business. You don't want a customer knocking on your door at 10 o'clock at night. It's best to get a mailing address from the post office or the UPS store or an executive suite service and register the business there. It does cost a bit, but your privacy will be worth it. Do we have any questions? If not, we'll go to steps 6 and 7. Determine business licensing and tax obligation. This is really important. So once you've formed your Arizona business, it's time to make sure you're totally compliant with the state, county, and city. Unlike most states, Arizona does not require you to have a general business license, but depending on the nature of your business, you may be obligated to obtain several permits and pay special taxes on a federal, state, and local level. Trust us, it's worth putting the effort in now to avoid getting hit with a hefty fine later on, or worse, getting shut down. Here's some great resources for learning about what taxes or licenses you might need to take care of. With the state, the Arizona Department of Revenue outlines Arizona business taxes pretty succinctly. and directs you to the governmental units you may need to get in contact with. For licensing information, take advantage of their interactive licensing checkbook at azdor.gov. And don't forget, you may be obligated to file for a TPT. That's a transaction privilege tax. So make sure you check. It's required if you sell goods or services subject to transaction privilege tax or sales tax. Once again, you can either go to the azcommerce.com/small-business page and search for transaction privilege tax or the Arizona Department of Revenue. The computation is rather complicated, so you better double check. The Arizona Department of Revenue has a brochure, but also check with your city, county, and town offices to see what they require. Some professions in Arizona require that you get a license or certification to practice your trade. And if you don't, you'll get a hefty fine or even be barred from performing those services in the future. I mean, we know that doctors, nurses, and attorneys need licenses, but did you know that building contractors, painters, even landscapers may need a license, certification, or permit? But since Arizona doesn't require you to obtain that general business license, it's possible you don't need to obtain any permits or licenses whatsoever. But it's still important to put in the research and make sure. Like I said, you don't want a hefty fine right when you're trying to start a business. Do we have any questions regarding that?
We actually have a couple questions that I see here. So first question is, if you're looking to just sell photos as a freelance photographer, is it wise to create a legal entity or okay to do it as a personal venture? What would you think, Marie?
Well, you better make sure that you're taking pictures of stuff that it's okay to take pictures of. Otherwise, you can get yourself in hot water. So if you're taking pictures of somebody's personal property or using someone's image without their consent or approval, you could get into trouble. So I would say that it's always wise to have those pictures owned by an LLC so that your exposure, which is a great word for a photographer, would be limited.
Plus, you want to copyright and protect your images. They're your own images. Those are really easy for people to, rip off is not quite the right word I want, but take. So you want to protect it's your IP, so you want to protect that. Bob, looks like you have an answer for this too.
Yeah, I do have a piece with that. One of the things that some photographers tend to forget is that the pictures are subject to TPT. So and on the checklist, we do have information for photographers to help guide them on that, but TPT is a key thing that they need to make sure if they're selling the pictures or selling a CD or a compact flash card or something with the images on them, that they are selling
the physical product.
The physical product. So you have to be mindful of that so you don't get yourself in tax trouble.
Right, good point there. We have another question too. If I already have an LLC, should I start a new one since I had to pivot due to COVID-19? I rent items out to hotels and event planners and now looking for a brick and mortar to do my own small events. I would say it depends on what the focus of the original LLC was. Just because you're pivoting, if you're still in the same line, the same type of business, for example, if you were, you're renting equipment out to hotels and event planners, and now you're deciding to become a restaurant, that's a totally different business pivot. But if you're still in the event business, you're just going to own your own events and not rent the materials, the supplies, you're sort of in the same kind of business operation. You've just pivoted slightly. So you could use the same LLC. What do you think, Marie?
I agree with you. Yes. I think you might need to make a different trade name depending if you're changing your name as a DBA.
Right.
and that you can register. You're not obligated to, but you can.
And you might want to buy a new domain name, but you could still operate under the same LLC. It's just the trade
Right.
name and the domain that would change. So it's whatever is easier for you in terms of managing your business structure. And then there's a question here. What is the difference between an LLC and an S Corp? If you'd like to go through that again, Marie?
Sure. Yep, I can. So with the S Corp, it's a little bit more complicated. The S Corp it includes a board of directors. It does have some different tax consequences as well. So there's shareholders. So depending on how many shareholders, it would also go on those personal tax returns of those shareholders. I would suggest before you form an LLC or an S Corp to really check with a CPA to see which one would be right for your type of entity. When you do have a board of directors, you need to meet with those board of directors and they make decisions together, as opposed to an LLC, which, if you have a couple of partners, then it's fewer people to disagree with your decision.
Well, and also with an S Corp, you have to have officers. So there's a president, there's a secretary, and a treasurer at minimum, and they have to be 3 different people. The president cannot also be the treasurer. When you're an LLC, and if you are a single member LLC, you can do everything. You have total control.
Mm-hmm.
But with an S Corp and a C Corp, you have a board of directors, you have separate officers, you do need to hold meetings and file an annual report and at least meet once a year. We've got some additional questions here. Can you create an LLC for an existing business? Yes, you can. That's certainly possible to do. Someone asked about whether they should do the photos as a personal venture or a legal entity. Can you do either one? What does the personal venture look like in terms of what we've talked about so far? Do you want to take that?
I think we answered that question. Whether they have to decide if they are willing to have financial exposure, if they do a sole proprietorship and put their personal assets perhaps in jeopardy. And also there are there's legal consequences to that. So the protection would be under the LLC. And without that, if you're a sole proprietor, you are one and the company. You are not a separate entity. And,
Right.
and neither are your assets. So neither is your car, neither is your jewelry, neither is your home.
Or your
That all
expensive
is
camera
one
equipment. Your expensive camera equipment too. It depends on the amount of liability you want to assume as a sole proprietor versus an LLC. So that would be a decision that you would need to make. Does Arizona have the option for a benefit corporation? Yes, it does, Anthony, and that is a different type of entity, and that's a different structure, but Arizona does recognize benefit corporations. And it would be very beneficial to find an attorney who understands how to set up a benefit corporation if you want to go down that route. And then I have started an LLC and am providing consulting services, management consulting, from reviewing the TPT license requirements. I don't think I need one. Is this correct? I'm the only employee. Correct. If you are not selling a physical product, you do not need a TPT. As a consultant, you're just selling your services, and that does not require the TPT. Another question. I've registered with Arizona State name and logo in the food beverage industry. What will I need to sell at farmers market in Navajo County? You've registered your name and logo in the food and beverage industry. What will I need? Well, it depends on what your product is. Did you want to take that?
Yeah, I can. That's the next slide is coming up about local regulation. So stay tuned on that one.
Okay, we'll be covering that. Okay. I already have LLC, but I use my home address. Can I still change the address to a PO box? Yes, you can. You should have login credentials to your registration if you did it yourself at the Arizona Corporation Commission, and you can simply go in and make an address change. And that's something the Spdc can help you with as well. And let me see here, just wanting clarification, a small business needs to file a trade name with the Secretary of State. What exactly does a trade name do or mean? Do you want to take that, Marie?
Sure. So before you form your legal entity, if you're still deciding on what kind of legal entity you want to form, you can check that site to see if it's being used in Arizona. And if it's not being used, you can register it there, and they'll hold it for 120 days. But that means that you'll need to form your legal entity within the 120 days so that that name doesn't get snapped up by somebody else.
So
Does
you
that answer
aren't,
the question?
yes, sort of, and I'm just going to add on to that. You are not required to file the trade name, but we recommend you do. And here's the reason. You might register your business under, and this is Chantal. So chantal.llc.com, and that's the business entity that you create. But you want to operate your business under a different domain and a different trade name. If you don't protect the trade name by registering it with the Arizona Secretary of State, and you are really successful, generating a lot of revenue and a lot of traffic to your website, someone else can come in, look up on the Secretary of State website for that particular trade name and discover that it's available, and they can register it under their own name. And you've just lost that trade name, and it's happened before. So that's why we recommend that you register both, set up your legal entity, and decide what the business entity name is going to be and what the business legal structure is going to be, and then determine what the domain name and trade name is under which you want to operate, which may be one and the same, but they don't have to be. And that's where the keyword research comes in, because that helps you determine the trade name and the domain name. So you don't have to, Chantal, but it's recommended that you do. And we've got a lot more questions coming.
Jared,
but let's
I'm going to
keep going.
suggest we continue on with the presentation and then come back to the questions.
Right. I was just going to go there. Thank you.
All right. Well, so the local, since regulations can vary from county to county. So somebody was asking about Navajo, and we may not know the rules for Navajo since we're in Yavapai. So it changes from city to city. So you can get in contact with your local Chamber of Commerce to see if there are any local requirements your business needs to fulfill. You can also do an internet search to find the chambers near you. The chambers are really helpful when you're at a startup. So contact them. You may need a license or permit in each town that you perform work in, so double check. You may also need to check zoning laws, so put in your due diligence. There are links for the cities on the Arizona Commerce Authority startup checklist I mentioned earlier. That's azcommerce.com. You'll find it there. You can go to your specific town and see the information there. Next is federal. The Small Business Administration's website, sba.gov, has a licenses and permits page, and it's a great place to find the federal departments you may need to get in contact with. So like Department of Agriculture or Alcohol and Tobacco or Tax and Trade, if your business deals with goods or activities regulated by the federal government. They've got some information on business taxes too, but ultimately, the IRS is the best resource for finding out about federal tax requirements. So that's irs.gov. You'll also need to request an EIN number from the IRS. This is the number that you'll use in place of your Social Security number when you're filing taxes for your corporation and your personal taxes and opening up a business bank account. That site again is irs.gov. It takes a couple of weeks to get that EIN number from the IRS, but they'll send it to you. The next step is step 8. Separate your personal and business assets and open a business bank account. Using dedicated business banking and credit accounts is essential for personal asset protection. Now that you've made it through registering and setting up taxes and licensing for your business, you need to take steps to protect your personal assets and establish your business as an independent entity. When your personal and business accounts are mixed, your personal assets like your home, car, and other valuables like that camera equipment are at risk in the event your business is sued. In business law, that's referred to as piercing your corporate veil. You probably have heard of that term. A business bank account separates your personal assets from your company assets, which is necessary for personal asset protection. A designated business bank account makes accounting and tax filing easier. To open up a bank account for your business, you'll use that EIN number I told you about that you got from the IRS in place of your Social Security number, so that this account is completely separate from your personal finances. Start doing your research on various business bank accounts. There's local options like Scottsdale Community Bank and Republic Bank of Arizona, and national banks like Chase or Bank of America. They all have their perks. Also, while you're at the bank, get a business credit card. A business credit card helps you separate personal and business expenses. A business credit card will also build your company's credit history, which can be useful to raise capital later on. So even if you're offered a business credit card that may have a low spending limit, even if it's for $250, take it. It's best to establish credit before you need it as a startup. So use your credit card, pay it in full and on time, then use it again, pay it. Another way to begin building business credit is to use vendors that report to the credit agencies. nav.com has a list of these vendors at nav.com/business-reports. Now we're going to go to step 9. Write a business plan now that you're really on your way. The Sbdc offers a free license to use some really great software that guides you through the process of writing a business plan. Once you sign up with the Sbdc on the Sbdc website in your county, one of the consultants will help walk you through this really important process. And your banker or loan officer will demand to see a business plan if you're planning on getting any financing at some point. This software makes writing a business plan easier and offers examples and tutorials as well. So it's not as scary as it sounds. So if you're in Yavapai, our website is yc.edu/SBDC. The one for Maricopa is maricopa-sbdc.com. Now we'll go to step 10. Set up accounting and bookkeeping systems. You can make it as simple as an Excel spreadsheet to start off, but you may want to sync up your banking and credit card accounts with accounting software like QuickBooks as soon as you get the chance. It's never too late to start organizing your business finances. The Sbdc has team members that are QuickBooks certified and can help guide you through this process. This gets a lot easier than you think once you write the business plan through the software license we loan you. Since your categories will already be determined and you'll know what to expect cash flow wise. We'll put a link in the, I think, are you putting the link in the chat for the handout for you to review? It's sort of a cheat sheet that we're going to give you. I think you're going to put on your website today. And you can follow these steps we've gone over today. You can download it to your computer so that you have it ready. Because if you're like me, this will come in handy since I write so fast I can't even decipher my own handwriting later on. And so my last pieces of advice to you as an owner of a small business are, don't spread yourself too thin. Too often small business owners fail because they try to take on too much at one time. Ask for help, whether from the no-cost business consulting through the SBDC or a mentor or a trusted friend. Sometimes we just get lost in the weeds and another pair of eyes is useful. Also, be willing to evolve. If after a few months you find your efforts simply aren't getting results, you must be really willing to revisit your strategy. And this doesn't necessarily mean throw it all out and starting from scratch, but maybe finding more effective ways to communicate to your audience. Or maybe it does mean switching courses entirely. In 2020, we call that a pivot. Many of us who own small businesses have had to do this to survive over the years. So thank you for your time today. Starting and owning your own business will be the hardest thing you've ever done and the most satisfying thing you'll ever do. Now, once you follow these 10 steps, run out and order your business cards. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Marie. So I just want to wrap up and then we'll get to the questions here because we have quite a few of them. But just to give you an overview, if you are not familiar with small business development centers, we're funded by the Small Business Administration and a community college, most of us funded through a community college. And that makes it possible for us to provide no cost, confidential consulting services to any business owner. So there's no charge for that. We also do affordable workshops like this, like our partnership with the Arizona Commerce Authority, but we do them also on our own separately. And you know, right now we're not charging for these at all. We have many local partnerships, the Arizona Commerce Authority being one of those, but also our chambers of commerce, our economic development officers throughout our communities. And every SBDC is the same, is similar in that in terms of setting up community partnerships with organizations in their local communities. So that just extends the network of the resources we bring to the table. In addition, as Marie had mentioned, there are 10 Spdc centers in the state of Arizona. We are one of those 10. Maricopa is the largest one that covers the Phoenix area. There's one in Pima also, Pima County. There's Yuma. We've got them all over the state, but in addition, there are 1,000 SBDCs across the country. So if we don't have access to the particular resource you need, then chances are there's at least someone in one of those 1,000 centers across the country that we can tap into and find the answers that you're looking for. Additionally, one of the key things that we do is help prepare business owners for access to funding. This could be a micro loan of $5,000, or it could be a multi-million-dollar loan from the SBA or through a conventional loan at a bank. But what we do is work with you to get that package prepared and then help present you your business entity and your proposal to the lender to achieve the financing. And that's one of the key services that we do provide. And that is the rest of the questions that, I mean, the end of the presentation, and we're ready to take the rest of the questions. Bob, did you want to field those or?
Sure. So our first one is, actually, I think you answered the farmer's market piece a bit in Navajo County. Sandy had asked that. Sandy, I'd also mentioned reaching out to the SBDC that is based in Show Low. They have offices throughout the Northland Pioneer College network up in the White Mountains area. And they can help guide you through the specifics to that area. You can also find information on the small business checklist. So Annie says, I sell tri-state, but office is in Mojave County. Do I need to pay TPT for Mojave County where the sale happens or where the product is being shipped to?
Well, I guess I can answer that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have to check your local community because some cities make you pay the tax even if you just do business in their town. So it's very important that you check. So you can't just assume that because you have your business in an unincorporated area, let's say, for instance, and then you go and you do your services in a town, you may owe tax to that town. So you have to double check.
Another piece with that is if you're an online retailer and you're selling products and shipping them all over the place, there, thanks to the Wayfair versus South Dakota lawsuit, every community that you sell something in has the ability to collect the sales tax for that community, regardless of where they're at in the nation. And so it can get very complicated. If you're using a marketplace such as Etsy, Amazon, or others, then they actually charge the sales tax for you, or should be. But if you're using your own online store, you definitely have to track the sales tax piece for wherever you're sending the merchandise.
Right.
Crystal asked, approximately how long will it take to receive an EIN number?
It could take 2 weeks, excuse me, or longer. Pardon me. They're being overwhelmed now by people wanting to be entrepreneurs. So it could come quickly, but I've seen people have to wait more than 2 weeks.
And do you need that number before setting up a business account?
You can't set up a business bank account without that number unless you're going to be just doing a sole proprietorship and using your own social security number and going ahead and piercing your corporate veil.
Okay. Sandy asked, who can I contact with the SBDC in Navajo County? If you just Google search just do Sholo SBDC, it will pull up the information for that office. Even though I work closely with SBDCs all over the state, and I still just Google the city and the SBDC to get their contact information because it's faster for me to find it that way than going through my contacts.
Yeah, Northland Pioneer, Rich Chanik is the director there. And I think but the best thing is to do what Bob said, is to just Google Northland Pioneer SBDC or Navajo County SBDC, and you'll get to their website.
We had another question. Some people I know do baseball lessons for kids on the side. They get paid in cash. If I did this, is there a specific money number I can work towards before I have to register with the state as an official business?
The first thing they should do is check with their accountant, because they probably need to claim that income, even though it's in cash, because my favorite Uncle Sam will want a little bite of that.
I don't think there's a specific number, but yes.
Yeah, and you'll definitely want to check because some cities require a business license for consulting and some don't.
Right.
And so depending on where you live, you may be required to have a business license, you may not, and you just report the income under your social when it comes tax time. All right, let's see. If I'm going to sell online just wholesale, do I need to charge tax?
Well, if you're selling wholesale, interestingly, Arizona doesn't have a reseller permit. But if you're selling wholesale, then no, you're not charging the retail tax, because that's going to get charged by the retailer. You're selling goods wholesale to the ultimate retailer who is selling to the end consumer. And the person who's buying your wholesale product is going to have to charge the tax to the consumer. So no, you wouldn't charge a tax.
We have another question. Do you need to have a separate bank account for different trade names under one LLC?
No, I mean, you could handle that in QuickBooks. It's what's easier for you in terms of managing the revenue and expenses related to each trade name. So depending on how much money you're generating in each one of those lines of business, you may decide that it's easier to do it with separate bank accounts, but it isn't required. You could manage it all through QuickBooks.
So just wanting clarification, a small business needs to file a trade name with the Secretary of State. What exactly does a trade name do mean?
I think we answered that, but the trade name is a business name under which you do business. It protects, like, for example, rather than your LLC, your legal entity name, frequently companies choose to operate under a separate trade name because after doing the research, the keyword research online, they found a name that is the type of words that people type into Google in order to find their business, the type of business that they operate. And no one is necessarily going to look for my name llc.com. They won't know that. But they might look for the product, the widget, the service that you're providing, and that's the trade name under which you operate. So protecting that by registering that trade name with the Secretary of State gives you that protection in which to operate under that and protect that name from someone else acquiring it.
And then she also asks, as a professional organizer, I would not need a TPT. Does that mean I don't have to set aside money for taxes?
Do you want to take that, Marie?
What kind of taxes? Excuse me, you would need to set aside some money for your taxes that you're going to owe my favorite uncle, Sam. You know, you better tithe for that unless you have lots of money sitting around that you'll be able to take care of that obligation. But as far as TPT taxes, just as an organizer, you're just selling your services and no goods. So I don't think you need to file for a TPT for that, unless you're selling goods in addition to that, in addition to your services.
Right. And if you're just selling services, it's a fee for service. And the taxes you pay are on the revenue, the income you generate at the end of the year. But you're not charging a tax to the customer, a sales tax, for example. That's really what the TPT is about. It's a transaction tax, a sales tax on the product that you're selling to an individual. In this situation, if you're just an organizer and you're selling a service, there's no tax charged on top of that.
All right, we have two questions. I think we can answer them before we wrap up. One is says, can you please elaborate further on TPT licenses? A vendor we hope to register with required the license, but we didn't meet the requirements. What are the requirements to apply for TPT license? Is it for every business?
Well, the transaction, the TPT is the transaction privilege tax, and it is a transaction, it's a license for selling a physical product. So if you are not selling a physical product, then you don't need to have a TPT license. So maybe it's a conversation with the vendor to because maybe the vendor is thinking of different type of permit or license. You know, and without knowing what the particular business is that you're in and what kind of product you might be selling and who the vendor is kind of hard to answer that question directly.
And you can apply for the TPT online at the Arizona Department of Revenue's website. So it's pretty simple to apply for the license. Last question, it says, I own a tutoring franchise and corporate office changed my center's name, which is different from the original trade name I registered. Do I need to amend or just register a new one?
Tutoring franchise corporate change the name.
Well, is somebody else using that trade name in Arizona? I guess you need to find that out. I mean, are there more than one franchise in the state of Arizona? I would find that out first. If there aren't any more franchises in Arizona using that other name, I would register it. It's $10. I would register it.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions and that's all the time. We are right up at the 10 o'clock hour. So Marie and Jerry, thank you very much for presenting this. I know a lot of good questions on this. I appreciate all the questions brought forth by the attendees. Excellent, again, excellent questions. This has been a great session. I appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate our SBDC partners for their knowledge and expertise on today's session. Thank you very much. We want to invite everyone to join us on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. for our next boot camp session. But until then, everybody be safe and have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bob. Bye.
Thank you.